wasn't clear on that.
So he was young when he got him.
Well, yeah, because he said he met him and he was just graduating from Western with Tom Higgins, right?
Yeah.
They were,
Yep.
Yep. Huh.
Well, that would make sense because that's when he
I'm sure my
was
brother
trying to
would
get
remember
he
some
got his
stories,
like
too.
pilot license and he was the paratrooper, so
Right.
trying to start his own business. That would
Yeah.
make
When
sense.
did he get his private license?
I don't know. I have his logbook. I'm not sure.
Oh,
I know he took
okay.
the lessons. I think was it Battle Creek Airport. I think is where
Yeah,
he took
that
them.
would be before Western got their flying
Yeah.
division. Yeah. Yep. Ancient history.
We're going to go ahead and try to recapsulate everything
Sure.
with you, and then we'll talk to family members as well.
Good.
Would you be okay with telling us your first and last name and where you live?
Sure. My first name is a legal name. I don't use it. Because my father's first name was Wilfred. He was born in London, England. My mother grew up in Scotland, born there. And they gave me my middle name, which was Ross. And they started calling me Ross when I was about that big. So way, way back.
And where do you currently live then?
In Portage. Describing from here, I'm probably central Portage, you'd say it is. And Kalamazoo is our biggest city, biggest suburb rather. That's what we call Kalamazoo, our suburb. It's the other way around.
And can you tell us, Ross, how you are connected with all of this exciting stuff for Mass Air Museum?
When we came, my first wife and I, that's my daughter Dawn there, that's her mother. When we came here, it was 1957, I think, in February. And I had grown up about 18 miles from Niagara Falls. That was my growing up years there. Anyway, my wife was quite a collector of people, and she collected a little group of mothers with children the same ages. And my first son, Scott, was only an infant at that time. But one of the people she connected with were the Hornells, Carl and Sally. And that's Amy's parents. So 57 then would have been the first year I met Carl. And at that time, I'm nearly 100% sure he already had the planes, the pieces stored. And I only saw them once, I think, maybe twice, when they were in the chicken coop. So it's about the size of it.
And I understand that you and Carl had some plans initially.
Well, we had some thoughts. We never developed into plans. He got his private pilot's license, and I only remember the plane that I saw once with him. It was a small two-seater, side-by-side, Navion, tricycle gear. I don't even know who made it, and twin tail, I believe, twin rudder. But he was either in the middle of training or maybe at the end of his training for a private flying license, yeah. But I never flew with him, never got that far. So my history is ancient, but it's still not as complete about Carl. As I said, he was a U.S. Army. He was born in Sweden, came over by himself, and I believe he had an aunt living here, Kalamazoo area, who had preceded him. And when I met him, he was just finishing up his degree in Western Michigan University, which is Kalamazoo's. And I don't even know what his degree was in. It might have been business, but I don't know. So we just talked about possibly forming a business, as I mentioned. Was that on recording?
I'm recording now.
Was the business we were talking about recorded? Yeah, we don't know. Whatever.
Not yet. We'll talk to the family. Maybe we can get some details from them.
Yeah, they might know. And it was just talk between us. I had my own interests, and Carl had his own interests too. But this storage, whenever he got it was already here when I met him, and we became pretty good fast friends because we were both professional photographers in the services.
Could you talk to us about your military experience? Tell us when you went in.
Yeah, I joined in the reserves when I was going to college. That was Buffalo State Teachers College. In 1951, I joined the Naval Reserve, and at first it was a surface battalion in Buffalo, and we had Great Lakes cruises at that time. Went on 2 or 3 of those for the next few years, but I had a college deferment from the draft. The draft was in existence since the Korean War had started in 1950 in the summer. But then when I finished my college, graduated in 1953 with a teacher's certificate and a nice, pretty degree that still gathers dust in the drawer. I never taught, but I had been in printing all my life, since I was a young kid, hanging around print shops, and became a printer then. When we came to Kalamazoo from where I left the service in Philadelphia with a young baby, our first child, and then we came rather broke, and printing became a second job for me. A couple of different shops in Kalamazoo. So, where was I?
Well, you were going to tell us about what you did in the Navy.
Or in
the
yeah,
reserves.
51 was the beginning of it with the reserve, and a college deferment for 3 years. Then I managed to transfer. It was a miracle. My best buddy in that reserve surface battalion was a fellow from Cleveland who worked for Bell Aircraft. I've always been in love with airplanes. And he was an engineer, and each of us managed to wangle a transfer. I don't know however we did it, from surface, which didn't offer. What he wanted was electronics, what I wanted was photography. And this is not Carl, of course, yet. This is Ken Powell, who became my brother-in-law. And, so we managed this transfer from the surface battalion to the Niagara Falls Naval Air Station. That was a reserve base. Helicopter rides over the falls, there's all kinds of stuff. And first thing when I got up there, they told me about a photo school that was available. And that was for reservists. It wasn't down at Pensacola, which was the big Naval Air Station that had school. This was the reserve school, and it was being conducted in Philadelphia at a reserve base north of the city, Willow Grove, a little town called Willow Grove. And I went through that training, and then when I got out, and the next year, this would be 54, I found myself on the wrong date, a date that the government picked way back, and said that those on one side of the date were draft exempt, those on the other side, which was me, were draft eligible. So they had me sticking my commander at the base then, Niagara Falls, he said, well, you just stick with whatever they want you to do. Physical in downtown Buffalo and everything and testing, whatever it was. So I went through that and came out of it, and then my commander had said, you go through everything. When you get the final induction paper, very final, bring it to me, which I did. And he signed his name. He said, you're on active duty. So I had 2 years of active duty facing me. My first station was a small auxiliary airfield right next door to the Philadelphia Navy Yard. Big yard, tiny airfield, an auxiliary airfield, except it was part of an experimental station for the Navy, and it's where they were developing the catapults. They went through air pressure. Was one of their systems.
Sure.
Pardon?
I'm wondering if we need to move because I'm not sure what they're bringing out next.
Yeah, we'll have
Yeah,
to. You let us know if they're coming toward us.
Yeah, they'll watch. My daughter will tell me there.
Okay.
Catapults they developed there. They went through air pressure, compression, and then they went through black powder catapults. And with all of these series, we had to set up high-speed movie cameras on the field. Nothing remote. We had to, we could only, with a cable, we could press a button and then duck behind a little barrier as they would catapult planes down the runway. And they'd have to pick up drag chains as they went to slow them down. And I once saw a F-86 airplane right out of the factory, and it ripped it in two. The fuselage, I think, ended up on the little ring they had that was supposed to break instantly. The fuselage ended up here while the wings went flying down the track. So they also experiment and developed the first ejection seat there for pilots. It was at this Muston Field, it was called, was this experimental station. I met my wife in the area earlier when I was in photo school, my future wife, and we got married while I was at Muston Field. And when we came back from our honeymoon, I went into the photo lab where I'd been working, and the secretary said, "Oh, your papers are here." I said, "What?" I was transferred then to north side of Philadelphia, a community out north, which was the Naval Air Development Center. And this center had the first centrifuge that was made. It wasn't whirling pilots around, it was whirling monkeys. At the time I was there, this would be 1954-ish. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun, but since I had transferred to, I had a photo school, so I had a nice third-degree petty officer rating, and I got into some nice flights. Our plane, they had a squadron of P-2V Neptunes. I don't know if you know the plane, but it's twin engine, sometimes two pilots, sometimes even one. And we last saw the Neptunes when they had a bunch of them flying for our big fires out west.
I think he might be moving the truck here.
All right. Oh.
We talked about backing the truck up, and is he going to turn the truck around and?
Oh, I don't know. Nobody's in it yet.
See what he's thinking. Yeah. I'm gonna